Comfortable? All the friends meeting together after many years? Okay, so we have a very experienced and diverse panel, starting with Pinghong. He has been driving the innovation in the fourth industrial revolution at Johnson & Johnson. You have just heard him. He leads a cross-regional team in designing and continuously improving cutting-edge digital capability. Okay. Next, we have Jessica. She's an associate director in global regulatory affairs at Merck, responsible for leading regulatory activities relating to US drug shortages and deletion and emerging device digital health development, while serving as a subject matter expert on FDA and other health regulatory bodies. Right. Next, we have Knut. He is a global market manager, process analytics at Knick Electronic Devices. His focus is on being in touch with customers, engineering companies, as well as organizations like ISPEs. A lot of experience. Next, we have Dr. Gilad, an accomplished business leader with 28 years plus experience in digital transformation, manufacturing IT, engineering, service delivery, and he has expertise in IoT, big data, AI, all the cool stuff. Last but not least is Wilbur on the extreme right. He's a senior director of digital manufacturing operations for MSD APAC. He has 20 plus years of leadership experience in biopharmaceutical technical operations in North America and Asia. From plant startup to optimizing production, Wilbur has experienced firsthand practical application of new technologies to the industry. So you can see that it's a very, very diverse panel. So I really encourage all of you to pay attention to all the wise words that they share and the experience that they share, and do ask them questions. So within this panel, you have expertise from regulatory, technology providers, as well as the users, the plant. And you can count me in as well. I'm also a plant guy. I'm not as expert as them, but feel free to ask us the questions. So we will start with the first thing first. Right, we typically have these buzzwords nowadays, right? So digitalization, automation, AI. So the list of acronyms is increasing. So we'll start with that question first. Maybe with Dr. Gilad. What is automation and how it evolved over time? How different it is from digitalization and AI? Yeah, so just enlighten us on that, please.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me on the panel and visiting here in Singapore. It's a great pleasure, and also for the interest here. So, you know, the theme of the conference is sustainability, and but everybody's talking about digitalization at the same time. I think the question was this. So, I think it's important to understand the difference, right? So, automation, as Dr. Pinghong started in his presentation, really dates back to the previous industrial revolution. It started in the 50s and into the 80s. There's two types of automation. One is in our process automation, what we know as automating the processes on the shop floor. The other is automating the business processes with systems like ERP and MES and such. So it belongs to the previous paradigm when we say automation. In the new paradigm, again, there's concepts of automation. We talk about digitization instead of automation. So in this world, really, it's about using digital technology to increase productivity. What we have to watch out for is, or at least understand, is do the systems that we have today that capture data in an electronic form, are they digital system or not? And the answer really is in what the outcome is. So we have to think about, instead of talking about names, automation, PLCs, et cetera, think about the outcome. What's the difference between, or what makes a paradigm change in industry? What makes a paradigm change is that every time we go through one of these changes, we see an order of magnitude productivity increase, meaning that we do things not single-digit % better, but triple-digit percent better, right? Think about going from steam to electricity. There's no businesses, no companies run on steam anymore. It's electricity. The same will happen. And I think there were some questions in the audience, right? You know, is our existing systems, can they use AI? If they inherently cannot use AI, they are not digital systems. And I think that's an important distinction to make. Digital systems are supposed to make things much faster. And as it pertains to sustainability, the idea with this time around, when we talk, you know, the previous paradigm changes or industrial revolutions actually came with more consumption and actually were not, in a way, sustainable, good for the environment. This time around, we're actually doing more with less, and there's a lot of focus in reducing impact, CO2s, et cetera. So by using these technologies, there should be an impact to that as well. And if they don't, then there's again a problem. There's that's one of the outcomes we're looking for.
That's excellent. As a OPEX person, I was a production supply chain person who turned out to be an OPEX person, operational excellence. I love this response because it's not just doing the digitalization, automation, or AI for the sake of doing it because everybody else is doing it, right? It's really beginning with end in mind, keeping the KPIs in mind, and if it is not making things better, then it's of no use, right? So, and this also means that if we are using digitalization for sustainability, then we have to really measure it, right? We have to really see that is it really doing what it is. So on the same thought, let's ask Wilbur, what do you think is your view on digitalization, and how does it intersect with sustainability? And maybe if there are any examples, feel free to share with us.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that. Pleasure to be here and an honor to be here at the ISPE conference speaking about sustainability and digitalization. When I think about digitalization and sustainability, I think that the thing that strikes me is that what's common about the two is that it's about continuous improvement, right? It's about making smarter decisions. It's about doing more with what you have, having technology to drive continuous improvement. I think that's what's common about that. So from a mindset and culture perspective, I think it's very aligned. It's very, there's a lot of synergy between the two. I think in the past, I would say 5 to 10 years or so, the world is aware the urgency of climate change, about the need of sustainability, and it makes sense that we'll use the latest technology for us to drive innovation. If we don't do something different, we're not going to solve the climate change crisis. So to use digital technology to help us with that, I think to me is a given, right? So I think from that sense, there's a lot of synergy in culture, mindset, in an organization. For the people that are driving these change, you know, they need to have the same mindset. When I think about companies that are going through the journey of digital transformation, we talk about going from pre-digital to connected to predictive adaptive. If I think about the early stage, we're talking about going from paper to digital, right? And as we know, in a pharmaceutical manufacturing shop floor, there's a lot of data, a lot of things that we have to record. Every single batch, there's a lot of data that we have to record to document the batch. And for companies that are maybe still in that pre-digital stage, that means lots and lots and lots of paper. And just by going to paperless, it could mean just for one company, millions and millions pieces of paper per year. And that in and of itself has a very big, giant, you know, footprint, environmental footprint, right? And I think digital really helps companies in the early stage, help you drive to a low carbon emission environment, right? And then as you progress to the later stage, then it's about connected, it's about predictive and adaptive. And we've seen lots and lots of examples today with, you know, presentations from before. Dr. He did a very nice job in talking about what are the opportunities. I think once you get, you know, the process on digital off of paper, then you can run analysis on your data. You can use your data to make smarter decisions, right? And that will lead to sustainability gains, right? Just to give you an example, the production floor now have to respond faster to our demand change. So we have to switch our campaigns. If the market is telling us that, well, we have to make product A instead of product B, we have to switch quickly, right? And if we don't have those supply chain transparency, that will lead to scrap, waste, over inventory, overproduction. So this is just one example that how we can use digital technology to have supply chain transparency, which will lead to less waste, right? So I think just up and down the supply chain and throughout the whole digital transformation journey, you can find examples of how you can use this technology to have, great outcome from a sustainability standpoint.
Excellent, thanks, Wilbur. I would just like to add something really fresh out of the oven. It's a coincidence that this week we are having ISPE conference and we are having this panel discussion on the digitalization and sustainability back at office, Pfizer. We are having a workshop in our brand new facility, which some of you visited, which is highly connected, highly digital, paperless. So a lot of focus on sustainability, digitalization. But what we are seeing there is now, when we connect the system too much, you may actually increase the complexity. So this is really the first-hand experience. So great outcome in terms of paperless, in terms of data availability for optimization, but just a word of caution that when you design these, make sure that the interfaces and the workflows are really optimized, because otherwise you may actually increase the inefficiencies. So right now, this week, we are having that workshop to re-optimize those connections. So this is just like sharing the personal experience that we are seeing in the brand new facility. Okay, so we move on to now Dr. Knut, and we'll hear from him, his experience. Can you please share with us any examples of process analytics, any applications and that have improved business performance and sustainability? Because that's the work that your team does.
Yes, I can. Thank you for inviting me to the panel. What are the different examples? It's very often it's difficult to talk frankly about it because everything is confidential, but still there are ways to improve the productivity by automation, by reducing manual work, meaning less errors may happen, less or even the paperless, no transcription errors, for example, things like that are obsolete, going digital, and especially if you do that with direct input to your process control system, so you lose less batches, which means this is more sustainable and more profitable for the company. And another example that just happened some weeks ago from a customer, it was not just the sustainability, but also security, employer security, because there was a guy sent to a tank doing a manual pH calibration. Everything was done manually. He was told, you need to go to tank N84 and do the calibration. And so he put on his clothes for the clean room and everything and went over there. But by the time he arrived over there, he forgot which tank was it. And he did what he thought. He wanted to calibrate the pH sensor in tank M84. Unfortunately, this tank wasn't empty. There was a fermentation running. Luckily, it was just fermentation. If it would have been a CIP, it would have been really, really dangerous. So, and if this is automized and done in a digital or standardized way, then there's no risk anymore for anyone.
Very good, excellent example. So now let's look at it from regulatory point of view, right? Jessica, that's your expertise, and also supply chain. Maybe you can share with us how automation can enhance the supply chain transparency, accountability, and any connection to sustainability in your experience?
Yeah, certainly there are opportunities to leverage automation to increase that supply chain transparency and accountability, which in turn is going to lead to more sustainable practices. We can benefit from automation, supply resiliency through decreasing that human variability, as mentioned, and increasing efficiency to highlight issues. So any proactive issues, we're going to increase that visibility and be able to apply risk mitigation measures. We know that most of the drug supply disruptions are related to quality issues. So if we're able to reduce the human error, we may be able to further reduce risk, further highlight those quality issues in advance and address them so that wouldn't lead to drug shortages. Other opportunities for sustainability, of course, are being able to reduce resources, both human and time, which we know everything is a limited resource, and just considering this inflationary environment, being able to do more with less, as said before. Going on with the resource limitations, we're really able to address that labor scarcity and cost pressures, but also drive an increase in overall equipment efficiency. So altogether, being able to increase supply reliability and therefore sustainable measures.
Okay, so I think so far my takeaway from your sharing is that if you do digitalization, you can make a very good use of your resources, whether it's plant resources, raw material, or anything that comes, even paper. So that will give us the sustainability benefit, right? So it's a wiser use of sustainability. I read somewhere that the definition of sustainability is really being fair to the next generation by not utilizing their resources. So I think this digitalization, as you all are saying, that we can make use of the resources wisely so that the next generation doesn't suffer, right? Okay, we move to Dr. Pinghong now. We'll twist the question a little bit now, right? Okay. Like we all talk about positive things about this, good connection, digitalization, sustainability. Are there any negative in environmental impact of AI, digitalization, such as energy consumption? We have heard a lot of things about how much energy the data centers consume, like probably equivalent to the total energy used by the entire railway network in the US, I read somewhere. So is this true, and how can we mitigate these effects? How can we strike a balance between the benefits of the AI and its environmental cost, considering the factors that we discussed just now?
Thank you for the question. Thank you for inviting me in a panel and a discussion as well. So I thought I'm going to share some good practice and from J&J, just like I mentioned, we are replacing the leaflet and using e-labeling. Definitely that is a paper savings and, a lot of good stuff. And so it's there. But I agree, right now, every day we are using more and more and, the ChatGPT, for example, and a lot of AI computing demanding is surging. And because everyone or every company, every organization is trying to leverage the latest technology and for the benefits. So, but don't forget, there is some concern, and especially, so when I read some good study, and anyone knows when you do a search query and through the ChatGPT or through the Google search, and what is the difference between the energy consumption? Anyone knows? So I can tell you, one ChatGPT and a query consuming 40 to 90 times of the Google search from the energy consuming and perspective. So that means every time you do a query, just a text query, but if you generate some pictures or videos, will be much, much higher. So that is the reason over the past couple of years, when you look at the ESG report and from Microsoft, from OpenAI, Google, you can see their carbon emission is going up, I would like to say. So even for the Microsoft, I think one of the year, they compare the water consumption, it's more than 40, probably 20 to 40% more, and for the last year. So there is another study, and as I mentioned, the water consumption and for the AI demanding by 2027, and will be accountable for 50% of the entire UK country. So all of this concern already, attracted their attention and from all of these big and AI companies. So they realized, they must do something. At the same time, I think it's good and singular. I think they already act upon, and they have the sustainability officer, and from all of these big companies, even for Microsoft, I think they hired a director and for the nuclear fusion and plant. So because they are going to want to do more sustainable way, and for all of this AI and computing requirements, and etc. So I think that is a good way. I know they are trying to find the best location and for their data centers, and to receive the water and save the energy as well. So I think this is a good one, but we still need to see and how that will be moving in the next couple of years. So NVIDIA, they are producing the AI chips, and that is very important. So I think one of the selling points for NVIDIA is to say our chips, it's much lower energy consumption, and when you buy our product. So I think all of this are very good signal, at least for us. We know all of this technology is able to help us and for the sustainability, environmental friendly, etc. But more important, and we don't forget, and how we're going to use, the opportunity not to, generate more and carbon dioxide, and for example, and to consume more and waters. So I think that is very important. I know more and more companies, they are moving into the cloud computing. That means they are shifting the data center into the big cloud computing and companies. And so that is one of the ways they can reduce the carbon emission, but they are shifting this kind of the work and to the cloud computing companies. Then, they have to think about how they're going to build up more and energy, or environmental friendly data centers, and et cetera, et cetera. Don't forget another one. I think, because we produce more and more chips and more technical products, and the supply chain, and also the waste disposal, the e-waste. So that is another concern, and for a lot of, companies as well, and how we're going to recycle all of this e-waste. So that is a very big topic right now. I don't believe, there's some good solution over there. Maybe someone is doing, and I really don't know.
Yeah, this is really an eye-opener for me as well, that we always look at the more obvious side of it, but we don't see what's going in the background, right? It'll be great if when we do a capital project, we have a return on investment, right? In the same way, if we do a digital project, there should be some sort of KPI which says net impact to the resources, considering overall impact on the environment, considering everything that goes beyond our factories, right? We may just see that, okay, we have eliminated something on our factories, but we may have created more impact and adverse impact to the environment somewhere else. So continuing on this, choosing, when we want to decide a goal on, let's say, sustainability, can maybe some of you share what will be good KPI? How do we measure that measure of success when we are doing a digitalization project or a digitalization supporting sustainability? Wilbur, maybe your experience, you have done a lot of projects, right? So is there any good way to put a KPI on that? Other than our standard KPIs of ROIs,
Yeah, what I would mention is that when you look at different organizations have different culture, right? Obviously, some are more business-driven, some are people-driven, mission-driven, and the story for change needs to be connected with the company culture, right? Whatever that is. Otherwise, it will be very, very difficult to motivate and inspire people to run the distance on both sustainability and digital. I think that I've seen various different KPIs set up. Some are let's say, for example, the digitalization. Some is more sort of like adoption type of KPI. How many bots have I built? How many dashboards? How many apps? Yeah. I've also seen financial drivers, non-financial drivers. I think a lot of the innovation work is very hard to put a KPI on that. A lot of the soft benefits, if you would, it's very hard to put a KPI on that. but we cannot underestimate the benefits that it's bringing by streamlining the business processes for our people, making the daily job easier. We should not and cannot underestimate that. I think what I have seen work well is depending on the business results that you care about. For example, for a manufacturing organization, typically we care about reliability, we care about efficiency, we care about agility, we care about attracting the best talent. And if you set a goal that is so ambitious in those results that people care about, that they have no choice but to innovate to get there, they will bring in the right technology. The leaders of the organization will bring in whether that's RPA, whether it's the dashboard, whatever the next technology that you need to achieve that goal, they will start to own that, on him or herself, right? I think that's, to me, one of the best that I've seen. It will require a level of maturity, for sure, for an organization to get there, but that's probably one of the best ways that I've seen it, compared to the many different ones that I've seen, ROI, financial, non-financial, so.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, so this is really resonates very well with us as well. Setting a compelling goal will make you think out of the box, right? And the goal has to be something that excites you to go and look for new technology, not the other way around. Sometimes we just go and chase the technology and then figure out what the goal is. So the wrong sequence, right? Anyone else would like to add on this, on the KPI view, like Dr. Gilad?
Yeah, so again, we have to remember that, each company, as you said, has to have their own metrics. What we're looking for is to change the metrics. How do we, with technology, impact that? We have to remember that, great, talking about AI all day long. The majority of the industry is still on paper. And that is, in itself, not sustainable, right? I mean, we can measure the time it takes to run an algorithm in the cloud. We can also measure how many printers are working, printing papers, and how many people are running around, moving these papers around. Then they go on trucks, and they go to places where they're supposed to be kept, and on and on and on it goes. So, we have to look at it holistically, right, in terms of what we're trying to achieve. But again, before we talk about all this great new technology, we have a problem in this industry. We're on paper. And as long as we're on paper, we're not going to move anywhere. So step number one, even in the sustainability journey, is to start digitizing the paper. And digitizing paper does not necessarily mean taking the paper and putting it in a computer. It means taking a look at the process behind the paper and bringing that into the digital world. Instrumenting the processes that you're putting in, collecting data about what you're doing, makes you better. And that should impact your KPIs.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. It's not just automating or the paper on glass, right? It's really look at where the operational excellence had and get rid of the waste, right? Literally that the workflows and the weight, and so just simplify that. Take the opportunity to simplify things, right? So on this point, Dr. Gilad, I would like to ask you that are there any specific, maybe few pointers from the baseline guide that you are working on, right? Maybe you want to share something on that? Yeah,
so the Pharma 4.0 baseline guide came out this year. It has a number, each of the sub-teams, introduced a thing. I think there's a lot of talk about technology. I think one of the, let me take a step back. One of the other things that we have in this industry that is unique is we're going through two transformation. The one is digital transformation, which we talked about all day long. But the quality organization, the compliance organization is also going through a transformation because they are going into this new world that's called validation 4.0, which is kind of unique. So when we engage with in companies going through transformation, there's two transformation going on. One is the digital, the process, et cetera. The other is the validation for it. And I think there was a question previously in the audience, what do you do with all this new technology and how you validate that? And there's a lot of very good content around that in the validation 4.0. On top of that, the baseline guide for validation 4.0 is actually coming out It's actually already written and is coming out at the beginning of next year. So that's going to also do a lot in driving and resolve a lot of the questions and uncertainties around how you validate these systems, right? But I also like to, make it clear. We saw some technologies today that help you. That AI generates an app or generates a chart for you, right? And everyone's going crazy. What are we going to do? How can we validate that? Well, all it's doing is replacing the human that creates the chart. If a human creates the chart, what are you going to do? You're going to check the chart is okay. You're going to validate the chart. Well, here you have technology generating it for you. You still have to review it and check that it's okay. Remember, these technologies are called co-pilots for a reason. They're not supposed to replace. They're supposed to help, right? So if you just take a simple risk-based approach with some critical thinking about what it's doing and apply the spirit of the regulation and not all the interpretations, we're actually going to get things done pretty fast.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, so now we look at any hurdles, right? So maybe Jessica, I would like to hear from you from regulatory. Are there any regulatory restrictions that may hinder the adoption of digitalization or sustainability initiatives?
Thank you. I think one of the biggest challenges we have is this is unprecedented. Maybe there's no pathway to take these technologies through, right? So as industry, one of the challenges we have is investment, putting forward resources, understanding the risks. Do you want to allocate those resources when there's unknown technical risks? What are the true benefits? And how can we share those with the regulators? What are they looking for? So this becomes particularly challenging when we think about the evolving regulatory landscape and moving sustainability goals. Being able to continually invest becomes particularly challenging for companies. So by aligning on those sustainability goals up front, working with the regulators and amongst industry, setting those goals and targets, we would be able to align on what we want to achieve, understand those risks, continue to provide and apply a risk-based approach, but really having an open mind to new opportunities, right? Of course, there are some risks, but how can we mitigate those risks to realize the potential?
So regulatory bodies are open to these, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Pinghong, I want to hear your review on any challenges that you have come across and have overcome in adoption of these initiatives or projects and large scale digitalization or sustainability.
Well, I think, and definitely there is a lot of hurdles and to navigate through whenever you want to do some change. So the change either digitalization and for better sustainability, and etc. So, but every time, well, once you identify the stakeholders, and so also we have the sustainability and the goals and as a company. And definitely, those hurdles will be neutralized after some time. Well, probably you cannot do at the very first beginning. So, but over the time, once the team and strive and to find a better way, and to tackle some of these problems, then you get a lot of support from the senior leaders. So another comment is. I see, this, well, maybe different company has a different practice, but in Johnson & Johnson, and we have digital team everywhere. So that means, either function, for example, the utility team, and for example, the manufacturing team and the procurement team, wherever you are coming from, you must have a digital team. So that means, you are trying to digitalize, as much as possible and to reduce the paper use, for example, and to achieve the carbon neutral. So that is our goal as well. And so, once all of this, goal is been set up over there, and I can see, get a lot of support and from all levels, rather than just from the senior level and the middle level, even from the lower level as well. So that is the reason, we can spend more time and to do the communication and to set up better strategy and to find a better technology and to ironing and the change management process and make sure adoption is better and when something new is coming. So I can see that. But I would like to say every team is inside out and to drive the digitalization. It's not just for the sustainability. It's more about optimize their process and to make experience better and also efficiency better and effectiveness better.
Thank you. One open question for anyone. So what's the main goal? Is it digitalization or sustainability?
Neither. It's productivity.
Excellent. Anyone else? Okay, so I think with that we end our conversation so that we give chance to the audience. So there is one question already, right? So let's see, how does quality keep up with digitalization if the manufacturing process has been automated, but the review process or capabilities have not? So I guess naturally it will be Jessica, or if anybody else would like to pick up this question. Yeah, chip in if anyone else like to chip in, right?
So this is exactly what I talked about before, right? That there's two transformation going on here.
Yeah.
One is the digitalization of your processes, but again, QA needs to keep up, and that's where validation 4.0 comes in. And validation 4.0 really is a concept built on the new guidances that have come out, specifically CSA, but also the QBD and the whole holistic control strategy that's part of Pharma 4.0.
Can I comment a little bit here? Just like I mentioned before, in Johnson & Johnson, actually in quality team, they have a digitalization team as well. So I think they are driving and how they are going to automate and the release process, for example, and a batch report review, and how they are going to automate the laboratory and operation, how they are going to automate the income material checks, all of this stuff. I think, because this is something they want to do. It's not something manufacturing want to do, it's quality want to do. I think that is changing the projection. So that means they are driving, rather than manufacturing want to use automation and everything digitalized. Quality, are you okay with this?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
Good
maybe if I can just add on, I think if I think back 3 to 5 years, right? Like if once in a while we have global quality leaders come to site, and the message that you hear from them typically is compliance. It's about following SOP, but I really start to notice a shift in the last 3 to 5 years or so. The message is about innovation. It's about I think companies now recognize the cost of quality. And I think I can see that it's really starting from the top, right? The mindset is really changing for faster adoption of technology. And I think that when you think about quality process, a lot of it is very rule-based. You have to get it right, 100% of the time. And so a lot of the use case is actually quite suitable for a robotic process, right? And if you need to get it right 100% of the time, is it better to validate a robot to do it versus having a human do it, right? So I think I do see that shift, and I think that we're all waiting to see what the next generation, like for example Gen AI, how do we use it in the GMP space? I think there's still a lot of unknown there, but I am optimistic that we'll get there, and I think there's going to be more productivity in the quality space in the future.
Excellent. I have a wish that one fine day we'll use an AI to automatically fully review the batch and release it without human touch. I know that's a wish, but it may take some time, right? Okay, so we have 3 more questions. Yeah, 3 more questions. Let's read the first one. With infrastructure already at its peak, with its almost 100% reliability, what happens if the internet fails, no connectivity for at least 2 hours? Will the operations stop? Yeah, that's a nightmare. Okay, business continuity plan, right? So who would like to pick up that?
Maybe I can start. So of course, when we're looking at product reliability, supply reliability. Risk management plans are becoming more and more required. The expectations have been elevated for industry. And having a business continuity plan, not only for product reliability, but your operations, you need to ensure that you have that backup plan, right? What is your plan? What are those opportunities? And what are the actions that you can take? So, for example, with the digital display label, we are doing a paper copy as well as with the digital display label just in the initial pilots, should there be any issue. But looking forward to other opportunities to ensure that if something does fail, there's something backing up so that there's no interruption.
Thank you, Jessica.
I have just a very small addition. So, you know, it's back to the paradigm change. The internet is becoming like electricity. It's becoming something that we are dependent on. What happens if in your plant if you don't have electricity? Right? If you were in the steam age, you would have the same question about electricity. What happens if there's no electricity? Now we're asking if there's no, what happens to the internet? In a few years, that will be obvious to us, right? That can be solved with investment. Getting redundancy and getting the internet to be 99 point however nines you want, it's just a matter of putting money on it.
Good. Okay. Anyone else would like to add, or we move to the next question otherwise? Okay. In our industry, we all agree that pharma is slow in digital transformation. One reason could be the drive for DX. And for a DX program, what do you think works best, bottom up or top down? Any examples? Who would like to take this? Dr. Gilad.
I'm speaking too much here, I feel.
Okay. Dr. Knut. No? Okay.
So this bottoms up versus top down is a key component of digital transformation. In fact, it's a way to understand whether you're dealing with digital technology or not. Because digital technology is implemented bottoms up. It means that you start small and grow. It actually aligns with lean thinking. If you have a system that is implemented top down, meaning that you have to stop, you have to think, you have to design 3, 4 months, even a year, it really is not digital technology. So it's actually a way to determine whether what I have in front of me is digital or not.
Okay. So DX means the guidelines for digitalization.
No, it just means digital transformation. It's short for digital transformation.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I just want to clarify myself. Okay, we'll take the next question then. Okay, what's the one thing that you would like to digitalize first in pharmaceutical manufacturing, and why? Wilbur, Knut, Dr. Knut, Dr. Pinghong, everything.
Well, we cannot do everything. I mean, frankly speaking, I think based upon different plants, and well, maybe different plants has a different priority or different focus, and but personally, I believe you need to digitalize your manufacturing process. So because that is where and make your product, at least you will see how you convert and from your raw material and into the finished goods. So what's happening in entire this process, because that is the opportunity for you and to use the data and the next step and to identify opportunity to do diagnostics, you know, and et cetera, et cetera. So this is my personal view, and maybe, you know, different plants has a different, you know, and opinion and priorities.
Yeah, maybe just to add on to that, I mean, again, it depends on the end goal, right? So if your end goal is that you want to, you know, increase labor efficiency, then of course you will go for the high volume processes, right? The manufacturing processes generates a lot of transactions. So if that's your end goal, that's where I will go after, right? But if your end goal is to, let's say, realize hard savings, then you have a lot of processes that has very high dollar amount associated with that. Your raw material process, your spare process, your scrap and waste process. So if that's your end goal, then you should try to digitalize that first. You know, it's very hard to get analysis done if things are still on paper, right? So it really depends on what the organization is looking for, and really what you're trying to achieve.
Thanks, Wilbur. We have maybe a little bit more time for 1 or 2 more questions. We have 4 questions. Let's see. what should be the biggest step to move to Pharma 4.0? What are the more common example of digitalization trend do you observe? Okay, so what should be the biggest step to move to Pharma 4.0? Dr. Knut, would you like to add to that? Biggest step to move to Pharma 4.0?
Well, well, I think it depends on the individual company, because I think not everyone is at the same stage or the same level already. So I think I think the biggest step is to get at least one step ahead for everyone, and so everybody moving forward. I think that's the biggest thing, no matter where they are right now. So because in different countries, different regulatory requirements and stuff. So I think moving into, well, let's say from the old times, from the steam to electricity, first of all, everywhere, and then from there to the internet.
Just want to add, so the most important thing in any kind of transformation is to have a strategy. You have to have a strategy, everybody aligns it. If you talk to all digital transformation experts across industries, you will get the same answer. It's like the biggest problem or the biggest failures you see is because there's not one clear strategy that defines how you're going to transform. And the most important thing in the strategy, does anybody know what's the one most important thing in the strategy? Is to have a singular, understandable goal. Right? What is the intent of what we're doing? And it has to be defined as a goal. And the goal from a Pharma 4.0 perspective and for manufacturing as a whole has to be productivity increase. So that's what we're after. We're manufacturers. At the end of the day, it's about efficiencies and getting product out the door. And if we don't measure it by productivity and define a strategy around how to increase productivity with digital technology, we're going to play around with all sorts of stuff and never get to anywhere.
Every time you say that, I love that OPEX person. Yeah, so bottom line. So everything starts with cost improvement, optimization. Only those goals will work like magnets. No other goals will work like magnet. You would like to add anything?
One of my experience, and especially to manage, and transform and from the paper-based and into the digitalized way, I think that is a change management, because you will have a lot of resistance and from the users, from quality, whatever, and you can imagine and how you're going to, especially to improve their digital literacy. Otherwise, they cannot understand because it is very difficult. Yeah.
Okay, one last question. How would digitalization affect productivity? I guess the question is about adversely or positively. But let's see. How would digitalization affect productivity?
I guess
Impact.
We said that so many times, and I was saying, what do you mean? So, let's just think about something unrelated to, right? Everybody uses Grab, Uber, and the rideshare services, right? So this is an example of digital technology. In fact, it's an example of a concept in digital technology called democratization. It makes what was once in the realm of experts now become in the realm of everybody's person. So Grab is democratization of a taxi service. Before Grab, you had a taxi service. You had to call somebody, and a guy who had a license to be a taxi driver had to come get you. Now everybody can be a taxi service. Everybody can be a taxi service consumer. What does that happen? What happened? If you think about airports, if you think about the convention center here, it made traffic much worse. That's an increase in productivity. If you think about it, it's negative, but it is increasing productivity. In airports in the US, it made the traffic so bad that they had to move the rideshare services out of the airport. It also made people not need a car, right? So that's an increase in productivity, and that's what happens with digital transformation.
One example comes to my mind, a local example is that we used to have our MRT lines, the north-south and the east-west. We had a driver in each train, right? Now all the new lines, the underground lines, these are all driverless. So to me, that's an example where, there is one person probably sitting in the control room driving all these trains, right? So one driver in the control room driving 10 trains, right? Versus driver in each train, right? That's probably a good example. So like better output, less number of man hours required to do the same job, right? Okay, so I just want to confirm that anybody in the room who couldn't access the pigeonhole and have any burning question, you want to raise your hand and ask. Just one last question. Vicky, is that okay? We have time for one more question, is it? Okay. Anyone? Okay, looks like you're all tech savvy. You are able to jump into pigeonhole. And so I would like to thank my panel. Really, it has been great learning for me. So for me, it has been an assurance now that my beliefs are correct. Also that focusing on productivity, setting the right goal, and with that, we can overcome any challenges that come with deploying these kind of projects. So really, I want to thank my panel. Thank you.